The Fever land in Washington at 5-5, with Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston both on the injury report, and that blown double-digit lead in Brooklyn still leaving a bad taste.
This is Indiana Fever Daily, and tonight the stakes are pretty simple. Skip the panic pieces for a second and start with the injury report.
We've got Clark and Boston status updates, the Mystics on Peacock, and Sophie Cunningham saying something I actually want to sit with today.
Plus, 2 articles came out the same day telling you to either freak out or relax. Let's sort the real concerns from the noise.
Let's start with the report. Both Clark and Boston listed before a road game. If either's limited, the whole closing lineup conversation changes shape.
Right, because the Hines, Allen, and Billings minutes look completely different if Boston's on a restriction. That SI lineup piece reads one way at full strength and another way shorthanded.
And we saw the full-strength version not hold up Saturday. Stewart got to the line 21 times. New York shot 33 free throws total. The Atlanta defensive answer just didn't travel.
The foul differential is the part I keep coming back to. You can talk spacing and turnovers all day, but if you're getting whistled out of the building in the fourth, the lead's gone before the offense even matters.
That's why I'd separate it from the 5-5 hand-wringing. Closing possessions and foul margin, those are real and fixable. The record itself is 10 games.
And then Yahoo runs 7 reasons they're fine, the same morning as the collapse coverage. Both ends of that are exhausting. The relax crowd and the sky is falling crowd reading the same box score.
Both can technically be true, which is exactly why the framing's useless. They're fine in June, and they blew a 12-point lead. Pick the part that actually teaches you something.
The Cunningham quote gives you something, though. People hate us. That's a veteran calling the outside narrative a problem in its own right.
It's a shift from last week. Back then, she was talking about something internal, a communication breakdown. Now she's pointing outward.
That's the part I find genuinely interesting. A week ago, it was, we're not talking to each other. And now it's, everyone's against us. Those are 2 different diagnoses inside 7 days.
And it matches the week. Alarm, then Atlanta as a 1-game breather, then the Brooklyn collapse. The way they're talking about it is escalating right with the losses.
So tonight tells you which version of this team shows up. Washington on Peacock, maybe without Boston, against a group that just got reminded everybody's watching them lose leads.
Watch the closing 5 and the foul count. Everything else today is just 2 articles arguing with each other. Here's Scout Springgate at Hawkeyes Wire.
For the 6th game in a row, Clark was listed as probable on the day-before injury report with her back ailment. But one of the Fever's other key stars joined Clark on this day-before injury report. 3-time WNBA All-Star center Aliyah Boston is listed as questionable with a lower leg injury. Boston briefly exited Saturday's contest at the Liberty before returning.
Okay, this is the piece that matters today. Clark probable for the 6th straight game with the back. Fine, that's baked in. But Boston's now questionable with a lower leg. That changes the whole night in Washington.
And remember, Boston briefly exited Saturday and still came back for 13 and 9 in 29 minutes. So questionable here means real uncertainty, not a maintenance day.
Right, and if she's limited, the Hines, Allen, and Billings minutes everybody was debating suddenly aren't a hypothetical against the Mystics' frontcourt. That's the rotation we actually have to watch.
6 straight games with Clark on the probable line. At some point, probable is just her status. The Boston note is the change on this report. 1010 WCSI with Jeremy Jiggy.
The Fever controlled much of that game and led by double digits during the second half before the Liberty rallied behind Breanna Stewart's 30-point performance. The loss was difficult because of the way it unfolded. Indiana played well enough to win for long stretches. The defense was active, the offense generated quality opportunities. The Fever controlled the pace for much of the evening.
They're 5-5, 48 hours after coughing up a double-digit lead in Brooklyn, and now Washington on the road at 7. That's a brutal turnaround to ask of a team that's still feeling that loss.
The consistency test we talked about after the Liberty collapse doesn't wait. Indiana gets Washington on short rest, and the schedule answers either way. Bounce back or let it stack.
And we just heard the injury report up top, so the rotation question isn't theoretical tonight. Who's actually available decides whether closing even gets a fair test.
Jiggy's right that they controlled pace for stretches Saturday. The problem was the last 5 minutes against Stewart, not the first 35. Washington's a different math problem entirely.
A road bounce back on no rest is the cleanest way to find out if Saturday was a blip or a habit. I just don't love the conditions for the experiment.
Here's Jeremy Giggy at 1010 WCSI.
Stewart scored 30 points and repeatedly got to the free throw line during a decisive fourth-quarter rally as the Liberty erased a second-half deficit and handed Indiana an 83-75 loss at Barclays Center. The defeat dropped the Fever to 5-5 on the season and prevented Indiana from building on the momentum it created 2 nights earlier in a strong Commissioner's Cup victory over Atlanta.
3/4 of the best road basketball this team's played, and then the fourth happens. Stewart goes for 30, gets to the line whenever she wants, and the lead's just gone.
21 free throws for Stewart on the night. When one player is living at the stripe in the fourth, the issue is foul discipline, not vibes.
And Clark picks up her 5th foul at 6:26 in the fourth. You lose your engine for the close. Against Stewart, on the road. The game's basically scripted from there.
2 nights earlier, the defensive intensity in Atlanta looked like an answer. Saturday told us it didn't travel to Brooklyn.
We spent all week wondering if that Atlanta scheme was real. Well, Stewart at the line 21 times pretty much answers that one.
Here's Corey Woodruff at Yahoo Sports.
The sky is not falling on the Indiana Fever, despite the team sitting around league average with 10 games logged on the 2026 season. While the house next door burns with hot takes and hand-wringing about Caitlin Clark and every single silly discourse surrounding Clark, and how the Fever are allegedly handling her, the team's is simply off to an uneven start, with plenty of time to find consistency.
So this drops the same morning as the Brooklyn collapse coverage. Yahoo's running 7 reasons you're fine, while the rest of the internet's lighting the house on fire over a blown double-digit lead.
Honestly, there's truth on both sides. Their own peg is the best one. Last year's playoff team also opened 5-5. June is a sample, not a verdict.
Right, but I don't need 7 reasons to chill out, Sarah. The sky is falling crowd and the breathe it's June crowd are both kind of exhausting on the same day.
So split it. The closing minutes and the foul differential against the Liberty are real, and they're fixable. The 5-5 panic is noise.
See, that I can use. Tell me about closing possessions, not about how it's technically June.
Here's the sporting news.
The Indiana Fever knew entering the 2026 season that life was going to be different. After a breakthrough campaign and another year of growth from franchise stars Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston, Indiana arrived this season carrying expectations that few teams in the WNBA have experienced. Every game is nationally televised. Every result becomes a headline. Every loss sparks questions.
Last week, Sophie was sounding an internal alarm. Communication, locker room stuff. Now, on her own podcast, she's pointing outward. People hate us. Every game national. Every loss a headline. That's a different read than the one she was giving 7 days ago.
And it's a fair read of the environment. The Fever are the only team with every game nationally televised. That scrutiny is real, not paranoia.
Right, but here's what bugs me. We just did the 7 reasons they're fine piece, and the Brooklyn collapse coverage is running right next to it. Same morning, 2 opposite flavors of noise.
So Sophie's naming the noise while the noise prints 2 opposite headlines about her team before lunch.
Exactly. And the real concerns, closing games, the foul differential, 33 free throws for New York. Those don't go away because people on the outside are mean. You can hold both.
If you like staying close to the Fever every day, you might also like Angel City Daily Podcast, a daily ACFC supporter briefing covering match reaction, NWSL standings, roster moves, women's soccer in Los Angeles, and supporter buzz. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. We've put links to every story from today's show in the show notes. So if one grabbed you, you can go read more. That's it for Indiana Fever Daily Podcast this Tuesday, June 9th. This is a Lantern podcast.